went up. We would be either importing fuel or importing the oil to refine the fuel. And I think the context with regards to Pariah's losses needs to be considered, because I'm not sure if we would have been able to avoid losses. A lot of our systems are based to meet societal needs as we see fit, or rather, to achieve a societal incentive, or to adhere to a societal demand. And things, that usually translates into like cheaper costs and more availability, etc., right? Where you would not have either had access to something or it would be very expensive, right? So that's why the ferry service is priced at the price it is, even though it's making a loss. That's why the air bridge is priced at the price it is, even though it's making a loss. That's why we still have a fuel subsidy, even though the government's like, well, we don't want the whole subsidy, we'll just take part of it. And the question is, was Pariah set up to make a profit? Or was Pariah, because according to Pariah's website, what do? Well, they receive, handle, and preparation of cargo. What kind of cargo? Product quality assurance, I guess with fuel products. Importation and local distribution of refined fuel. Well, that's just money going out, right? That operation does not bring in money, we're importing it. And the question is, would the refinery help mitigate more costs? In theory, it might have, right? Instead of importing the refined product, you import the raw material, refine it yourself. It might save a lot on foreign exchange. Now, the thing is, that doesn't necessarily mean that it prevents you from making a loss. So the context that we need is, and this is probably a question way too complex to just ask the union, right? And then, of course, you have to determine, would the union give you 100% of the truth? Would the government or whoever is the relevant stakeholders on Pariah's side give you 100% of the truth? Because a lot of the accounting is not just, 1 + 1 makes 2. It's how you account for things, and then, how do you apply depreciation? How much depreciation do you apply, etc., etc. What is an expense? How do you define expenses? And that's why you get into the accounting tricks of, well, we made no profit. Yeah, you made no profit because according to the accounting books, you made no profit. That doesn't mean necessarily that every entity that makes no profit doesn't actually make money. The money could just be going into salaries of ownership or to pay for expenses of executives, etc., etc. So there are accounting tricks that can be done. So how exactly are you going to define the accounting books to determine what is a reasonable profit or loss in this situation in general for Petrotrin to compare for Pariah? Because depending on what you believe, if you believe the government that Petrotrin was losing money, the $2.6 billion losses could actually have been more with Petrotrin. I'm not saying that it would have been. I'm just saying it could have been. I'm not saying that Ansel Richard is wrong for bringing this up and for bringing it up that he is. I'm saying that he's wrong for taking, because he says, this is the truth. Right, this is a convenient truth. You take the facts that are true. They are true. And you don't look to answer comprehensively the question. You don't look to comprehensively make a case, account for as many variables as reasonably possible in order to strengthen your conclusion. If this was an academic paper, I don't really think it would go very far. It might be a very basic one, because you have evidence, that's fine, but you did not account for anything else. And if this had to be compared to a different effort that did account for more variables and factors, even if the conclusion is the same, that paper would get higher marks. I believe it would have more relevant material that matters, that helps bolster the argument. This is an approach that we need from our leaders to communicate better if we want, one, to ensure transparency, accountability with regards to what they're saying. Two, the public relies on leaders to educate themselves on complex topics. Well, we want the best education that we could get, right? Why do we want to be missing out on details or potential arguments or factors or perspectives? I mean, to be fair, this is basically standard operating procedure for any union. We take the facts that are convenient for us, and we don't really bother with the questions that are inconvenient for us. And it's not just unions, it's politicians, it's head of state boards, state agencies, even to some extent private interests. You see that around the world. So I get it. It's nice that he has a strong statement and he could grandstand. And he's using the opportunity to say we need the Commission of Inquiry report on Paria, the Paria tragedy, to be released to the public. And yes, I don't disagree with that. The head of LMCSC and all has doubts now. He's come out publicly with doubts on the whole process with regards to the fact that, look, if the Paria board is still there, if the people in management of Paria, the executive is still there, well, how much could we believe in this? He is, of course, making assumptions on the report, to be fair. But that's nice. You take the opportunity to grandstand. You use a current issue that is important to the nation to grandstand an issue that's important to you. That's cool. You give us a figure that doesn't really have any other context, and then you make a statement that a political party has to die for the country to live. And at the end of the day, there's a reason why things like that only accomplish very little. Because it's not enough to convince people that aren't diehard for or against on whatever issue. And those that are for and against are more or less set in stone. So you're not convincing anybody of anything. You're just pissing in the wind for no reason. All right, moving on to the next story. A couple of quick hits topics. First of all, staying with oil and gas. COP28 summit, for those who don't know, this is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which holds the conference of the parties to the convention, COP. And on the first day, it's reported that the participants, they have decided to adopt a loss and damage fund. Basically, this fund is to help with nations that have to deal with irreversible economic and non-economic costs from extreme weather events and slow onset of climate disasters. So, you know, the hurricanes and extreme weather patterns that might cause property damage. This is a fund that various countries are going to pay into that can be used to help disaster relief. Now, it's said that it was done within the first day. However, this is something that has been in the works for quite some time. So it's not as though that the representatives of different states came together literally and made something out of nothing in a day. It is, I believe, a good step forward, right? Climate change is already a controversial issue, but I think what is undeniable is there will be natural disasters. They may be natural disasters of greater frequency, and it's becoming harder and harder for smaller and poorer nations to deal with it. And the problem with that, why it is somewhat a responsibility for us to the world, is if instability is allowed to be generated in any one part of the world, that could have effects throughout the global village that we have. That's basically the unintended consequence, and one that I believe we should accept, of our growing interdependence as a planet, as a global community, and not just as separate nations in far-flung corners of the globe as we operated back in historical times. So some good news. Look at that. I'm giving good news. Some different news, not necessarily good news, but I will say something that I somewhat agree with. The president was making an address to the business community at the Hoover Point Lisa's Chamber of Commerce annual Christmas dinner and awards ceremony Wednesday. This is a couple days ago. But she made the address basically calling on the business community to put themselves up for public service. Now, she is, to some extent, saying, well, make yourself available for things like state boards and tribunals and other bodies of the like. And I do wonder if maybe she is avoiding the elephant in the room in that state boards are political appointed. So, generally speaking, independent appointees, I mean, the irony, of course, herself included, that question has come up. People just looking to give themselves for service might be on the outside looking in for a lot of these things, right? They don't necessarily want to have to give themselves up for public service and then have to declare for the PNM when the PNM is in government, or the UNC when the UNC is in government, etc., etc. However, I think the basic core tenets of what she had to say, I can't disagree with it. Because as I have mentioned in other conversations with other colleagues at this desk, there is concern that people do not want to participate in the running of their country. I think we spoke about it last week with Janelle and Andy, and I think with Karen and others. Participation with regards to running country is necessary. Otherwise, don't be surprised if it resembles a dictatorship, except it's not, or a totalitarianism regime. But it's not the government necessarily imposing its will. It's the fact that they're the only will around, them and the opposition. But there's no will of the people. There's no public sentiment of significance to express what changes we would like to see. So then how can we complain for changes? And this is just one aspect. There are other aspects where we need to be more involved, but I think this is a good one. And I get it, the cynics, those who, they want to serve, but and some of them might have even gone through the wrong. This is a pattern that I think is very much repeated in many different spheres of our public service, public sector, government ministries, state entities, etc., where people are eager to do the right thing, and then the reality of the politics of the office or the politics of the day hits them in the face because it bogs them down and they can't do anything. But I would say to that, don't be discouraged by that, because part of the reason why we're in the state that we're in is everybody gets discouraged and we give up. And then what we get are the entitled ones who just want the authority and the perks and don't actually care to do a good job. I mean, that's why Stuart Young had to speak on Paria, because, let's not rehash that. Some more good news. The police arrested 5 suspects after an armed robbery. It included some Venezuelan nationals. It does not state that all of the suspects were Venezuelans. Now, apparently the report is that 2 individuals were robbed a business, robbed the owner of personal property, as well as cash sales generated by the business. Then they escaped in a vehicle. The report was made on the vehicle. It was intercepted. 5 individuals in the vehicle have been, I believe, arrested. So what comes out of that, I'm not too sure, but I would just like to highlight the response time again. Usually what we're accustomed to hearing is some crime is committed, they escape in a car, and then the police find the car abandoned or burnt or whatever, no occupants some hours later. But they more or less were able to get these guys. Hopefully it's the right guys, right? So we'll wait and see. People that might want to sound the alarm bells about Venezuelan criminals, I understand. I think it is a case, something to be concerned about, but maybe not in the way that people think. And it's not something to necessarily use against the immigrant community that we have. So I would caution people, please, please. Crime could happen from anywhere that sees itself as disadvantaged and desperate, especially economically. Last thing I want to just mention briefly, the Signal Hill fight, one of the students involved in the fight is reported to be the daughter of one of the THA secretaries. And I'd just like to caution people from speculating on how this is going to make the situation worse. At the end of the day, Just like police come from our society, our police come from us, our criminals come from us, our politicians come from us. And we have to remember that they are human. Now, the secretary herself should understand, yes, the media would ask for her to comment because she is a public person and because someone being involved might have enough relevant information on an issue that is of, if not national importance, at least importance to Tobago. And I understand that she would want to protect the privacy of her family. That's fine. However, commenting on the fight itself, the motivations behind the fight, that at the very least, because for better or worse, she's a parent involved, but she is also a public figure. It's not a clear distinction in a case like this, and I do think it's unavoidable, and it's the price that you have to pay if you want to be in that position. You don't have to give out private information of your child, right? You don't even necessarily have to give out the participation of your child and the disciplinary aspect of what's going on with your child, etc., etc., etc. But the parts that are of national interest, that is to say, what exactly happened, and you know, the why did approximately 20 students beat down one student? I think that's something that, you know, the nation has a right to know. At the very least, if it is pertinent to the motivations of this case and helping to prevent similar situations from happening in the future. Because the parents have some concerns, and, you know, it could be that this was a malicious beatdown, and that and all should be explained to us. So I understand the secretary's frustration of not wanting to have to deal with this in this manner. To her, it's a private thing, but the incident itself is not that private. I think the scope is too large. And, but there should not be now people jumping on the conspiracy. You see, they're going to try and cover it up because of a child. No. This is a delicate matter because we are dealing with over 20 minors. So you have to give that some consideration. And note, this is just another parent with just another child at the end of the day. Those two things are separate. And we do have to give this individual some space to do her job as a parent and then as a secretary of the THA, and not just jump to conclusions just because it's there. Folks, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome my colleague and guest for today. We'll have a little bit of a lighter topic after all this, maybe. Stay tuned to talk about a WSN. We'll be right back.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River Pianos, Vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital. Welcome back to Talking Point, and joining me is no stranger to the program. We had him a couple of weeks ago to speak on the general topic of arts and the performing arts in TNT, and we actually have him once again. This was to be fair, though some people might think that, you know, well, it was so great last time, we'll have him again. No, this is something that we wanted to do and plan in advance to have these discussions, because I do believe, like sports, but we have a sports show, right? Arts and culture is an important aspect of society, and we don't have an arts and culture show yet. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Hint.
But until then, you know, we should at least try to carve out some corner of the space. In parts of that, it's not all doom and gloom here on Talking Point. So welcome to the show, Mark Anthony.
Good morning, Sean. Thank you so much.
And Mark is here, well, under a slightly different title than the last time he was here, but we'll save that for later. I mean, you might see it now. But before we get into the later topics, the first thing I wanted to touch on, as it's still somewhat, maybe not entirely relevant, but I do think it's an ongoing conversation that the public should be aware of, and that is, of course, the usage of our national symbols with regards to art, because I think we just had, of course, I Would Judge using the national anthem at the beginning of a song, right? And I'll get to that specific detail later. But just in general, the use of our national symbols in art and culture. The problem with that is that, generally speaking, it's very lazy to just take the coat of arms and slap it on a piece of art and say, ooh, artistic. Right. A true artist would want to use a national symbol and modify it to fit whatever work he is doing. And it's not always going to be a work that you could just take something wholesale and put it right in the middle of it. So what is your opinion on the modification of our symbols for artists? Because I actually do have an argument for it. Okay. I don't know if you do.
So with regards to the use of the national symbols in art, we need to always be careful in terms of the context in which we're using it. And if you are choosing to modify, how far are you going to go? All right, it's very important as artists. We always need to practice due diligence. Always practice due diligence and do the necessary research and work before going up for it. Now, if it is a visual art competition and the competition specifically says incorporate one of the, let's say, the coat of arms or a national flower or the national bird or something like that, which those things have been done in the past. If you go anywhere in Port of Spain and you see on any wall, they have those sort of things displayed, right? But there's specific protocol when it comes to those things, and each artist must, I think, make sure to understand what those protocols are and try your best not to go over the boundary too much. Because at the end of the day, as artists, we do take risks. We do take certain risks with our art. We do take certain risks with our performances and things like that. Is it going to please everyone? No. But with regards to the national emblems and you know, symbols and things like that, we need to be a little bit careful with how it's used.
But you're not saying, you know, there's a hard line and you just can't cross this line. You're saying, you know, art is subjective, and while the line, you know, I hesitate to say subjective. It's not as, no, once you could justify it, you could go as far as you want. But it's not a hard line. There is a little bit of wiggle room for the sake of art, but you take the risk, you bear the consequence if you go too far.
Yes, I mean, if you want to take that risk and you're willing to take those consequences, I mean, big up you. But at the end of the day, art is subjective, but our national emblems are not.
Well, the thing about it is, and this might go into maybe not why Mr. George decided to incorporate the anthem into the song, but in general, I thought, listen, one of the things about our national symbols is the fact that if we just kind of leave it there on the shelf, ooh, it's something to be admired from afar, like in a museum behind a glass case and a steel bars and laser lights and an alarm system and stuff. Well, then it becomes this distant thing that is apart from us. Whereas if artists are given the freedom to respectfully include it into art throughout the ages, it will always be not just relevant because it's a national symbol, but relevant because it is being interpreted and celebrated in new ways in the present as we continue to go down throughout time, you know. And again, we'll get to the specific use. But I just thought that, you know, at the end of the day, yes, using it in a popular, commercially viable art form is a way to kind of, hey, this is not just a minor thing. This is something that we should celebrate and be proud of and not forget and take for granted. And it keeps it in our minds. It stays in that space. One of the examples that come to mind is, you know, I speak on a sports show about American football. Before every show, they have an anthem, a ceremony, you could say, with a flyover. It could be Air Force, Air National Guard, Army helicopters. It's a spectacle of patriotism. But it does the whole pomp and ceremony of it. With regards to a commercial product, it's a sports game at the end of the day. It kind of elevates or keeps that anthem ceremony in the minds of the people. It kind of keeps it relevant to today. Little children that watch the game also now get hit with this dose of, hey, this is national importance. This is our anthem. This is us. This is who we are. And I don't know if we have that. When we have an event and we sing the anthem, it's kind of just there to be there. Because we have to.
Well, but here's the difference. If you look at those sports games, it's usually one person singing the anthem. do you see the crowd joining?
Sometimes, yes, you don't hear them.
Right, so then that becomes another discussion about singability, right, of that specific anthem. But with regards to us, the protocol is always stand, right? Those of us who know the anthem was originally an instrumental. You know, if you get into the history of it.
Oh, okay, I did not know that.
And then the words were added. You know, not far later, but the words were added soon after. So that is why in certain performance spaces, in certain places, if they're playing a recording or if there's a live band, they just have the music. People have the choice to sing, or people have the choice to just stand and, you know, do what they need, just stand and pay their respects. That is the protocol when it comes to the national anthem. But we need to be aware. Now, again, it depends on the context. Now, let's say someone is creating a painting and they do not modify the national emblem itself, but it is within the context that paints the, pun intended, that paints the pain that and any sort of suffering that people that is happening in Trinidad and Tobago is that bad, because it's now in the context of a negative light.
Right. But it's not necessarily an untrue light, depending on
it's someone's interpretation and someone's experience. You can't take that away from them. But that's why I said the art itself is subjective, but the national emblems should, in my opinion, they be very, very, very careful with how you use it. Because come into Happy People, which is the name of the song, Mr. George, he's not the first one to get into something like this, and I don't anticipate he'll be the last. All right, but I just think people need to be very, very aware and careful.
As an artist, the use of the anthem, I just found it was very lazy, just slapping in the beginning. And you're not the first person to say, but you have also said you think that it was done so it'll be easy to pull out after the controversy and the hype was generated.
I think originally, possibly, I don't know him personally, maybe I can have a conversation with him at some point, but I think I think it was part of an act. So when he does perform it live, everyone will stand at attention, and then once the well part happens and start to you start to sort of break away, then there's that, you know. So it's the act of performing it on stage and the people off the stage as well. In all honesty, I didn't like it. I heard it, I was like, okay.
It seems very basic to me. That's why
it's a little bit. Sorry to say this, but it seemed a little bit tacky in my opinion, right? And I just felt like, okay.
Yeah.
If that, and then soon after, I was like, if you want to, deal with these consequences of using the national anthem, I don't think it should have been used.
But is it more because just how it was used, it seems so unnecessary? Because to me, that's ultimately what it is. For the song, it seems unnecessary.
A bit of both. Like, of all things that you could have put inside of there, if you wanted to, with regards to Panorama, there's always a little excerpt of a contemporary tune of a popular tune that some of the bands include, right? So they usually do the arrangement of a soca song, but there's usually sometimes a little excerpt of something. But of all of these songs that exist, in the entire world, to put our national anthem in there, I just felt, no, I don't think you should.
Could you have just used a part of it? Or some of the lines, maybe, but then, one or two of the lines, kind of,
but then
fling them around?
Okay, so then now we move, in my opinion.
Because now we're going to modify.
We're going into modifying, and then that bleeds into copyright issues.
Okay.
The national anthem belongs to the state.
Okay.
All right. The president of COT reminded us of that. The national anthem belongs to the state.
Yes, that is true. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So at the end of the, it belongs to the state. Don't. It's a song. Don't.
All right. All right. We hear your pleading cries. I had the same thing. I just thought this was not needed to make the song good.
Now, on the other hand, there were people firmly in George's camp being like, you know, people saying he's the most patriotic person. They know whatever he didn't mean, and he did apologize, and I believe another version was re-released without the anthem in it, right? But then there was a TikTok user who said her child, the primary school children, when after they sang the national anthem, they started singing "Well, well, well," which is his phrase in the song.
Yeah.
So it's causing a little bit of national disturbances.
Identity crisis?
Yeah, a little bit.
This is not the Twin Republic of Iowa, George.
Yeah.
So. All right, so I wanted to change tacks there before we run out of time completely. One of the things, though, we didn't necessarily get to last week when we were speaking with regards to both the upcoming. It's upcoming or it happened already?
It's upcoming.
It's
Sunday.
upcoming,
It's
right?
Sunday, yes.
With UE Arts Kerala and MISA. But MISA, sorry. I am an uncultured swine, folks. I am a barbarian. The performing in arts industry in TNT, I think it was a case where we were seeing growth to some extent. You know, there were new organizations being added, new events onto the calendar. Queen's Hall is being booked out. You know, especially now in this Christmas period. But of course, COVID happened, and people had to adjust. So, just in general, how were those adjustments, that evolution, I guess, you know, how did we go through that? Coming out of COVID now, as we have to try to restart things, you know, have we been able to pick things back where we left off in that space?
Well, I have to take issue with one of the words that you said, restart. There's no restarting, there's only continuing.
Well, there's restarting in the sense of live performances, Mark. Live performances.
But we're moving forward with what we have right now.
I mean, I suspect that a lot of the online offerings, many of the people who engaged in that, they stopped that activity as live events were now available. I know you didn't, but others did because that's traditionally the medium and what the audience expects from them.
Right. I think, and you're right. I think during COVID, it was a very uncomfortable situation for a lot of artists. We had to sort of find a way to make it work somehow. At the end of the day, we are artists, and all we want to do is to get the message out, to create our art, and to create a career out of it. So people had to make some adjustments. We had to go with we had to adjust with the ever-changing regulations at that time.
Right.
5 people in a space, but then change to 10, but then there's spikes, so we're back to 5, now we're back to 0. All of those things we had to deal with. The good thing, one of the things that I'm seeing, that I saw and I'm still seeing, it caused us to sort of reevaluate what we're doing and how we're doing it, in a sense. So, for example, there was a virtual show that was created. It was called Hold On, the Story of Resilience, and that was a virtual show. I was part of that. All right, that was by MW Productions.
Right.
And you know, it was done in a way that where we were able to adjust to the current situation at the time, and then we were able to just continue from there. Now that we're back out, just sort of do the live shows, right? But in terms of the readjustment, I know that people are we're very attached to the norm, we're very attached to comfort zone, comfort space. But at the end of the day, if, God forbid, if something else were to happen, we're artists, we adjust. We're artists, we reflect, our art reflects what's happening at the time.
Because there is a mysterious pneumonia.
Oh dear.
Coming out of China, and I have seen reports, I don't know to what extent there's cases in America since August, but we're talking like a few hundred, right?
Okay.
Since August.
Okay. Is it in Europe as well?
And Europe, yes. So and this is actually, to some extent, there's concerns that it's bacterial, it's not viral, so now antibiotic resistance, if and when that comes into play, how far this could spread, because, you know, viruses apparently are involved. It's very complicated. I am not a doctor, folks. I'm not going to pretend to explain the nature of this situation. But there's always the concern, right?
Yes.
Before COVID, there was always, this flu, bird flu, cow, swine flu, whatever, right? there was always these concerns of these outbreaks coming out and people sounded the alarm, but it didn't happen until COVID. Right. And then we got something major. And I think the lesson for that is don't just underestimate. Yeah. Yes, it's likely that most things aren't going to turn into COVID, but the possibility is still there. Now, economically speaking, I don't know if the performing arts has been able to really kind of get back the momentum that was lost because of COVID. It's one of the industries that definitely lost momentum. Other things, you know, parts of society opened up, you know, just like that once we reopened the doors and got back to full gear. Can the performing arts industry deal with another situation like that, depending? Because we don't know how far this new one might go.
I think we can. I think we can. The thing about it is we just need to make use of what we have and be able to see and be able to adjust to certain situations. So, for example, last time I was here with Mr. Murray, we said, you know, Trinidad and Tobago specifically has a rich history and a rich choral music industry. So during COVID, that was not possible because when you speak vapors, so when we sing, vapors are flying through, right? So obviously you could not have a set of people on stage singing to a set of audiences, right? So that's why the audience had to be dwindled. That's why they could have only done instrumental things and all of those things. But we do have, but something that did gain back a lot of momentum was the steel band. Because why? It's not a wind instrument, so you don't have to blow into it. It's not something that you sing. You don't really need to use any sort of vapor or mouth or anything. You can be spaced out, and it would not affect the sound because you are using your hands, and it's just you and your steel pan. So if you were to have, let's say numbers were a problem, okay, fine. You can reduce it. You can reduce the big ensemble to more of a chamber ensemble. Chamber meaning just smaller, right? And you can have an outdoor something very, very easily, right? So it's just we could have done that when we had the first carnival the first carnival season just after COVID hit, right? I was saying to people, you know, some of these steel bands, they should get some of their players, not the entire thing, get some of their players, get on a truck, drive through and play, right? If anyone has ever been to Pan on the Avenue, that's something that they do, right? They're just coming in on trucks, they're just coming in and they're doing well, right? So it's not like we don't have, we do have, and we have the ability to adjust to certain situations. I just think on another note, I think we just, some of us are still kind of on, sort of on alert still, because if we hear about something, then we start to get nervous, we start to get that anxiety hitting, and we start to get that fear hitting as well. So we need to be very careful in the decision making decisions through fear and anxiety, or just being sort of calm and objective and sort of going through the thing.
Well, there's more to this that I would like to talk about, but we're running out of time, so we do have something else to get into. So we'll go straight into it. Let's not take a break, guys. Let's go straight in. And, of course, it's the Christmas season. And you came last time wearing the hat of a president of the UE Arts Chorale, but you're also an associate conductor for the Lydian Singers. One of many titles you wear just in that organization alone. And you're here to speak about Joyful Lydian's Christmas presentation for 2023.
Yes, so the Lydian Singers will be presenting its Christmas concert, Joyful, a jazzy Lydian Christmas. Obviously, right away, what is it about? Jazz, right? So it's
not something people would associate with Christmas in general, one, and with a Trinbagonian Christmas, two.
Exactly, but you know, why not, right? So they're sort of taking this theme and moving forward with it. We have our artistic director and Dr. Leah Brown, right? There are two other associate conductors, myself, Mr. Anton Williams, and Mr. Siobhan Brathwaite. Mr. Siobhan Brathwaite is also the music director of the Lydian Tacoma's recently launched youth choir, right? So that youth choir was officially launched earlier this year,
right?
For the concert Roots, the Rhythm Within. So this is their first time performing with the Lydians for Christmas, all right? So it's going to be at 2 locations. It's going to be Saturday the 9th, 7:30 at St. Finbarr's RC Church, and then Sunday the 10th at St. Paul's Anglican Church at 6 p.m.
St. Paul's Anglican Church is where for those?
San Fernando.
San Fernando, and St. Finbarr's is in Diego Martin in Port of Spain. So north and south location. One of the things I have to ask, just to kind of tie back into the previous topic, this is not big concert halls that you're going to be doing your Christmas presentations to. You know, usually we expect the big choirs to be in Queen's Hall. Not so much Napa, but Napa's a possibility. And of course, Sapa or the Naparima Bowl, but you all decided to do in churches. Any reason why?
Choral music sounds great in a church.
that actually is true. That actually is true.
There's like choral music sounds absolutely perfect in a well-built church.
And Lydians have done concerts in churches.
Yes, of course.
Quite regularly in the past. One of the times that I've seen Lydians was actually in a church as well.
Right.
And is it that it's acoustically, so you don't need the same amount of like...
Okay, so you do need the same, there are sound specifications that you will need, but just overall, it's
amplification.
Amplification,
yeah.
You still need, but it's overall a good place to hear good choral sound. And one of the things that the Lydian Singers has been sort of, it's been on a journey of just sort of coming back to where it all started, a sort of sense of let's just come back home, let's reach out to the community in a different way, and then we just go forward with that. So that's why it's church, good sound.
So Christmas jazz. Kind of, without giving away secrets to the performance, right? I don't know if you could do a little bit of marketing here, because one of the things in TNT that I think we don't have enough of is variety with regards to music. We have some, but maybe not enough. Nowhere near as much as our culinary variety, right? So Christmas jazz, like, what does that mean? Is it just a jazz spin on Christmas carols? Is it original pieces or new pieces that might be new to the public at the very least?
Yes.
So all of the above.
All of the above. So the Lydian Singers, they'll be doing the senior choir. They'll be doing a major work, which is a jazz mass. Right? You'll have to come and hear that for yourself. It sounds
jazz mass.
Yes, a jazz mass.
As in church mass or carnival mass?
Well, a concert mass. So the Kyrie, the Gloria, all of those things. Okay. But it's a jazz composition.
Church mass, folks. Not a carnival mass.
So yes, and then there will be some jazz arrangements of some things happening there. We also have.
You have the steel as well?
We have Lydian Steel, we have the Lydian Tacomas, the youth choir, and then we also have some special guests. We have Chris and Joseph joining us. He will be a guest performer. We also have Warned Bigford, who will be joining us. So we have some good things happening there.
Do you find it interesting? Because I do find it interesting that the Christmas season, for whatever reason, like that's where we concentrate a significant amount of our non-soca, non-commercial pop music. Well, I mean, it's commercial, yes, but you know what I mean, like radio-style commercial music. Right. Popular, modern, whatever is popular in the modern times. Where we get choral singing, classical singing, but I mean, now it's jazz presentations as well, right? But of classical themes, I guess you could say, with the mass. Is there something to be said about, could it be that we're maybe limited, or do we just have this tradition that we value so much and it does offer an excuse to give something different and diverse?
It's a sense of tradition, but I also think there's so much saturation happening in the rest of the year. So as soon as, I don't know if anyone experiences this, as soon as Boxing Day, of course, starts, what do you hear? Right? You hear soca music. And then you have that carnival season, right? And then you have your Easter season where people just call a wine. Now people do Easter concerts. People have been doing them as well around that season. But at the end of the day, we just need to take a break.
So basically what you're saying is we fet in after Christmas for into Carnival. We fet in over the summer months, right?
Yeah.
Because, travel and whatever, but even Tobago, whatever. Yeah. So Easter and Christmas, it's not so much that we just have these old traditions that we're clinging on to, but rather they're oasis of difference and diversity.
And I mean, even throughout the year, there's always something happening. I mean...
but it's mostly fets and soca, or...
Well, that's at the forefront, but I think, and it speaks to the audience or the people making sure that they know what's happening. So, for example, if you're, for those who are not aware, so the UARTS Chorale and the UARTS Steel were having our concert on Sunday. For this entire weekend, from Friday to Sunday, there's also the Marionettes Chorale. They are having their concert, right? And then the following weekend, Lydians is having their concert. And then for the following weekend, there is the Love Movement will have their thing in Adam Smith Square, and then I will have my concert, and then I believe John Thomas is also doing something with USC.
Yes.
So there is some heavy, and then there's DC Shell Theatre. I believe they're also doing something in the next few weeks as well. For those who don't know, that's Crazy Catholic, and he puts on his stuff, and it's good for the family. Everyone offers something unique, and there's something for everyone, right? What you need to do is to be able to look, do your research, see what's happening. I'm going to bring it back to the UE Department of Creative and Festival Arts. At the end of every semester, there are performances, right? So there's the same season of the arts that Mr. Murray would have spoken about. There is that at the end of every semester, right? So you have the percussion ensemble, the jazz ensemble, they're doing their stuff. The UARTS Chorale, UARTS Steel, they're doing their stuff. The theatre department, they have their things. The dance department, the visual arts department. There's a lot of things happening all the time. So it's a matter of, I don't think the things are like that because, you know, you need to take, or, you know, it's just tradition, but there are things happening all over. It's just a matter of knowing where to look.
Knowing where to look. Folks, we have to take a break for news on the hour, but I'll end this segment there. I think one of the things maybe that we do need to look at now is, and it's not just for arts and performing arts and cultural events, but also just in general, how do we disseminate the information of all of the things we have to offer? Because I do feel when people try to bring new things, sometimes that's kind of lost in the shuffle. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Folks, let's take a break for news on the hour. We'll be right back to take phone calls when we return. Stay tuned.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Inland Revenue and Customs Division employees given 3 months to decide future employment. Barbadian cricketer Shane Dowrich declared his retirement from international cricket. And Namdevco launches new wholesale market in Chaguanas. Now for the details. Workers employed at the Inland Revenue Division and the Customs and Excise Division now have an extended period of 3 months to determine their future employment, aligning with the provisions outlined in the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority Act. Originally set to declare their positions by tomorrow, employees received a deadline extension until February 28th, as announced by attorneys representing the Ministry of Finance. Minister Colum Imbit, overseeing the matter, made the decision to prolong the time frame. Notably, the initial deadline was initially set for the end of August, but as it approached, the minister had already granted an extension to November 30th. To address the demands of stakeholders in the central area, the National Agricultural Marketing and Development Corporation has inaugurated a new wholesale market at the Woodford Lodge facility in Chaguanas. This facility serves as a platform for local farmers and large-scale buyers to engage in trade. The opening day witnessed the success of 40 vendors, with notable instances such as a pop-up vendor completing sales within the initial 10 minutes of trading. Operations at the Woodford Lodge facility wholesale market officially commenced on November 25th, marked by a brief opening ceremony led by Ms. Nirmala Devi Singh, Chief Executive Officer. In a surprising development, Barbadian cricketer Shane Dowrich has declared his retirement from international cricket, despite being included in the ODI squad set to confront England in December. The 32-year-old has decided to step away. Dowrich, known for his contributions in 35 test matches for the West Indies, amassing 1,570 runs and one ODI where he scored 6 runs, leaves a notable gap in the lineup. The Cricket West Indies selection panel has clarified that there will be no immediate replacement for Dowrich. Well, that's it. News on the hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
It's Christmas time, and with your family you'll spend every evening watching a movie on WESN. The classics that fill your heart with merriment and cheer as we celebrate together the most wonderful time of the year.
This is my island in December.
This Christmas, WESN celebrates with you as the content capital brings the big screen classics. Gather your family and tune in to WESN from December 1st to 31st at 8 p.m. nightly for We Christmas Movie Classics.
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my God! Santa here? I know him! I know him!
Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, this is the last chance for the weekend to call in and have your say on anything that we've said today. I know not everybody might necessarily have anything to comment or ask about with regards to the arts and entertainment, but we do have a lot of topics that we can get into with regards to the Commission of Inquiry. With regards to, well, domestic violence is, I guess, still present in our national sphere and rearing its ugly head. But there are a whole host of other issues that you can call in and get into and have your say. In the meantime, as we wait for calls, one of the, actually to kind of parallel the themes, because I say sports and arts are important to our national sphere. They're important for us because they could help engender a sense of national pride, and as well as give us examples of success to strive for, not just academic success or business success, but, you know, for those who are more physically inclined in the sporting sphere, for those who are more artistically inclined in the performance sphere. And it gives our society a diverse set of examples, doing things differently, and some of these lessons could then be translated into the business world, into other professional endeavors. But I'll hold off on the point that I'm making. We have a caller from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Morning, Sean. Morning.
Morning, Mr. Fisherman.
You know, the police administration buying a lot of body cams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it a wait when they're going on raids, and you know? So when they show that what they do, the people could be more, the public could be more concerned with the police. You know, you rely on them.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't show these things, like for instance in Grandi, the protest they had,
mm-hmm.
you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
You don't know really what happened out there. You hear different sides of story. You know, from the people, from the police, we're hearing different things. And they investigate, but what really comes out of this investigation, like for instance, all the big investigation from the CLICO come right down. You don't get it out to the public. I would gladly these divers come out in the public, let the public know exactly what goes on. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
It's just a simple, let the public know the kind of money spending for these things, and nothing comes out. Nothing comes out of it. The public like to know. Thank you very much. Let's know. Get some money in the chat.
Thank you, caller. That's a good point. It's one that I started to make earlier in the week. I don't know if I really kind of finished it. And it ties into why I said, listen, I think that a lot of the decision makers at the end of the day, they're very weak. They don't want to deal with these complex situations. It's easier to hide behind, confidentiality. We can't make the report public because whatever reason, whatever story, we can't reveal footage because it's part of an ongoing investigation. We can't reveal it. And in the case of the police, and body cameras are going to step further. We don't have proper procedures. We don't have enough charges. We don't have enough this. We don't have enough that. How they're going to be used, blah, 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 blah. And as opposed to urgency to ensure that this can be utilized, and urgency to, in case of controversy, release footage so the public will not be left to speculate to their own devices, and then people get upset. Why are you speculating for? I don't want to make the next caller wait too long. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air? Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Sean?
Yes.
I am merely hoping that the report will be published in full. That is the Paria report.
Mm-hmm.
That it will be published in full. And not only will it be published, but actions will be taken to implement the findings of the report, which is to say, if people are guilty of mismanagement, misbehavior in public office, I am hoping that the government would close the chapter in the only way it can be closed, which is to say, people must be held accountable. That is all I have to say this morning.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for that. We do have another caller from Tobago. Good morning, caller. You on the air?
Good morning. Am I on?
Morning. Yes, you're on. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Sean. How are you this morning?
It's been I don't know. There's still crime in the news, and at some point you try to not to let it get to you. Fires burning on people's homes. I don't know. In this day and age, it's hard to be positive, but I'm trying. I'm trying, sir.
Yes. We all must keep on trying. We can't give up. Just remember, we're all in this together. We're not alone. I know sometimes it seems that way, but we can't be like sheep. And I often give the analogy of a flock of sheep being managed by one sheepdog. And this is because the psychology of the sheep is that I am one-on-one with that sheepdog. So even though there may be 100 sheep, that's 400 hoofs, and there's only one sheepdog. They don't think, okay, if we gang up on this sheepdog, it might bite one of us, but that would be the last bite it bites. Because with 400 hoofs, we could trample that sheepdog out of here. Sheep don't think like that. Sheep thinks it's just me and that sheepdog. And that's why one sheepdog will manage the entire flock, because fear strikes each of them and they see themselves as an individual. Sean, I wanted to comment on I want to give my comment on party politics and what it actually does. And George Washington warned the American people back in, I think, 1791 to stay away from it, because it's a very dangerous animal, very vicious and dangerous animal. It divides the people and seeks to amass to its side as many of those divided people as it possibly can. Now imagine a football game when your team is advancing, your team has the ball. What do? You cheer. You raise your flag. So everyone in the stadium raises their flag and cheers for their team that has the ball. What is the other side doing? Booing. You see? Booing. And if you score, the other side is not going to celebrate you scoring because that is going to demoralize their team. So what do? Even though you scored a goal, they will still boo you. They're not going to recognize your good efforts of, oh, wow, they scored. Good for them. You see? They're still going to find faults with the fact that you scored while your team is going to cheer that on. That's the nature of party politics. So even outside of the campaign season, each party must keep its team cheering for it and criticizing the team that has scored, the team that is now in power, the team that has scored the goal and has won the election. The other side now must never recognize anything good that that team does. They must constantly find a way to find fault with what that team does. Any little thing. There's a thread hanging from your suit. Who does that? There's a lint on your jacket. Who does that? You see what I'm saying? So this is the nature of party politics. This is why the people are kept in a perpetual state of being anti each other. That in and of itself feeds the entire atmosphere of putting the people as sheep, where they don't trust each other, they cannot rely on each other, and they simply see themselves as one-on-one with whatever is oppressing the country. And right now, crime is oppressing the country. And we must break the bonds and break those mental chains of being in teams. I'm on this team, I'm the PNM team, I'm on the UNC team. No, you're on the Trinidad and Tobago team. Get that through your head. There's one team here, Trinidad and Tobago. Outside of campaign season, put your party aside. You see? That's my comment this morning, Sean. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think it's something that we need to hear repeatedly until it is effectively addressed. And it doesn't have to be necessarily addressed in the way that you or I see it, but it needs to be addressed. Because you're right. You're right. We cheer for our team, our party. We boo the other party. But what we don't understand is that's fine in a sporting game where the point is to defeat the other side and it ends there. But in politics, in governance, the point, yes, for a party is to win an election. That already is, the motivation now behind the existence is not necessarily just for good governance. But, okay, after you win an election, now you have to govern. And a win in governance is a win for all. It's not just a win for the side in power. And criticisms. There's a difference between constructive criticism and criticism that undermines. So it works both ways. It's very much, you're correct. We see it too much as a win-lose, as a zero-sum game. And now that has put people, and maybe it's because we just naturally, that's how our brain works. Maybe it's because we weren't conditioned to think a bit more holistically at a situation and a bit more objectively at a situation. And that goes into, it's not just crime, it's our economy, but also our education system. We have a caller from San Fernando. Before I continue waiting, good morning, caller. You on air?
Hello, Sean.
Morning, yes, you on air?
Yeah, hi, morning, Sean. I want to two things. I want to go back to on Wednesday when you were talking about we were having a discussion on Wednesday with Karen about property tax, and I made a mention of the local government minister talking about the amount of money that was being that he claimed, which I really in dispute with. He claimed that they spend on removal of garbage per household in this country. And he said it was $16,000, he said, a month. That could never be correct because that equates to about $19 billion for the year for garbage removal. But I made that was trying to build a case to where I'm showing mismanagement in the system. That was really my point. Mismanagement in the system. And I think that went over. Karen said, yeah.
I think I missed. To be fair, I might have missed it too.
Now, what I want to tie that into, Tasha Boris in Tobago.
Okay.
I saw her on a program. There's an ongoing series in Tobago on the Tobago, a program on Tobago in the morning called Delvin Deep, and they're bringing in the secretaries. And that young lady, the gumption to call out the public servants within the Tobago House of Assembly and their work ethic. She was the only one, because the moderator or the presenter on the show had has been speaking about it with previous other representatives, but she was the only one before she was asked to call them out and talk about their work ethic and how much work they actually do and efficiency, and that is one of the major problems they're having within the THA. I was so proud of that young lady, that she was as a beacon within all the old talk and all the banter and the bacchanal within the THA. She was the first one to actually come out and say this is a problem. And I wish more politicians in this country could come out and say that, and message out there, and hopefully these employees of the state, part of the problem with the inefficiencies within the state system are themselves. And nobody is being held accountable. The supervisors, the managers, nobody wants to do what they're supposed to do and hold other people accountable and say, here what happened. You're not doing your job. And write them up, escalate it, and force their hand. Because we can't keep going on like this, Sean. You see what? If you listen to, I don't know if you listen to the gentleman from the NIB talking that they're going to run out of money in 2035. That's how serious this thing is. And we have this Trinidad and Tobago have to realize what's happening. If you're really concerned about the future of Trinidad and Tobago, we all have to get up and say it's time to fix it now. Have a good weekend, Sean.
Thank you, San Fernando. And practical reality quite often could contradict ideological beliefs and biases. So, oh God, why ought to get on so about them? What do you? Well, yeah, but the practical reality is we can't afford excesses and inefficiencies like that. We can't. And I think it all comes down to a combination. Okay, maybe politicians are not lazy, but it goes back to what I said at the top with the first caller's comments and also what I said earlier on in the week. I think it comes down to being weak, because governance is not easy. It's hard, but we don't select our elected officials based on their ability to take a difficult job and to do a reasonably good effort out of it. We don't judge them based on that. And to be reasonably well enough skilled to effectively carry out that job. So we need the effort and we need the ability. But we don't necessarily judge on that. We judge it based on what? Well, technically, on their party affiliation. Let's be real, right? It doesn't necessarily matter who it is. If the party tells me to vote for X, and we are a constituency that is traditionally dominated by voters of that party, we voting for X. It don't matter who X is. It don't matter what X track record is or how capable X is. He is the person put there for political considerations. And that now comes into popularity or a whole host of other things that, generally speaking, yeah, you might be able to be effective as a politician in the party, as a campaigner for the party, as a speaker for the party, to get the party's message across. That has nothing to do with governance. One would have hoped that their effective capacity to speak to effectively market the party, to effectively communicate for the party, would translate into effectively communicated for the government. But that does not always happen. Ironically, just look at the current public relations officer of the PNM. His communication mistakes as AG was incredible. And it was more or less self-inflicted. So I think it's weak because now they have to find it within themselves to solve major issues. And they're not really solving major issues. They're putting band-aids. You know, they're doing a little bit. The road may be long. We'll start off with this footstone, with this piece of ground here. We don't necessarily want to have to go all the length of the road. Let somebody else do that. I just want to enjoy my time while I'm here. I don't want to be too stressed. Or I don't even know what to do. Holding people to account is not easy. Being an effective boss is not easy. Because the flip side is we could get people who just go on a power trip and they want to control everybody, fire everybody, discipline everybody, punish everybody. But being an effective boss is not easy, especially when you have to navigate the whole labor situation that our country finds itself in and deal with unions and so on and so on and so on and so on. And then now try to communicate complex things to the public. And since you can't do it, you end up fumbling that, taking blame for things that you don't need to take, like with the ferry service back in 2016 or 2015. And when that collapsed, and you have the Minister of Works basically saying, I don't understand why this situation is so bad. Well, he was in the job for 6 months. Apparently nobody sent him any memo for 6 months, give or take. Apparently he has a portfolio that dealt with situations and important aspects of the nation that did not necessarily bother him to just follow the news. You know, it wasn't anything that was important to him until he got the portfolio. And then it still wasn't important enough for him to be properly updated with the state of one of the bigger line items in his ministry. It's weakness. You know, people don't like it when I say incompetence, so they are competent. They are smart people. They have degrees, masters, what have you, professional careers. Some of them have great accomplishments. That doesn't always translate to governance because it's no longer about my profits. It's no longer about my career. Unfortunately, for too many politicians, it's still about their political career. But governance is about what's best for the country. Sometimes it doesn't align with itself with what's best for your career. And that's why I think this Commission of Inquiry report here for Paria. Now, it will not be an indicator if it's not revealed to the public that they're trying to cover something up. But it's not an unreasonable speculation. Knowing that, why then would they keep it quiet? If you know what I know, what you know what I know, right? You would say, well, if we keep it undisclosed, the public will speculate, so we should reveal it, unless we do have something to hide. And then the mental gymnastics goes. But it's similar to the body cameras. Why isn't the rank and file of the police, the leadership of the police, the veteran senior officers who might not be commissioner or deputy commissioner or assistant commissioner of police, but the ones with the experience in the police, the association, why isn't all the stakeholders, the family members who have to sit through and live while their sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, as police officers get accused, why aren't they all saying we need to get this body camera situation working ASAP? You would think that a tool to help transparency would be top of the agenda for a service that has a public perception issue, that has trust and confidence issues with the public they're supposed to protect and serve. That's a hell of a thing, isn't it? Transparency works for you, but it also works against you when it seems as though you are not actually trying to be transparent, and it plays into what would be the obvious and not necessarily proven, but the obvious conspiracy theory. You're trying to hide something. You're trying to cover something up. And one of the things is Transparency takes strength. Strength of character, resolve, conviction, sense of purpose and duty. And I do wonder to what extent, and this is not just, I find our media ambassadors, you could get that sense from them, but they can't represent in this capacity the entire service. And I think too many, it's just lip service. And especially with the politicians. Especially with the politicians. It's almost as though they don't fully understand what it is they sign themselves up for. Because what they want is the job description that comes with all the mismanagement and allegations for corruption and poor public perception, low quality service, inefficiency. It seems as though they want the job that then causes these outputs. They want that easy job. They don't want the hard job where they have to work the long hours, where they have to go down into the trenches to sort through the mess, one tangle at a time, to try to improve governance in the country. It seems like they don't want to do that. And I could say that because we don't see any results. Because you can't tell me you're trying and this is the results we get, because then we come back to my old friend incompetence. You're not competent enough for the job. But I don't want to go there. Let's not make that, you know what I used to say, don't ascribe to malice what you could ascribe to incompetence. No, it's not malice, it's not incompetence. Let's start with weak. The inability to determine what the right thing is, and that's why you make wrong, mistaken choices more often than not, at least to the public. You're not able to explain yourself properly, so that's all that we're left to deal with. And that's why the results are so bad. And that's why it comes back to one of the other things we've spoken about this week, participation. What the president was speaking about. It's interesting. I don't know if her statements on the joint crime talks were sanctioned by cabinet. I don't. I do find that question interesting in my mind as I think about it. And now I do also have to wonder if this is the president, basically she's going to say what she thinks is the right thing to say, for better or worse, regardless of whether the government likes it or not. I'll close with this. I do wonder, I'll be very curious, what happens with the Commission of Inquiry if the UNC wins the next general election? Because I don't know if the UNC has any stakeholders that they need to protect, like potentially, maybe, as been argued with regards to CLICO, that both sides have dirty laundry they don't want to air. But with this Commission of Inquiry, right now, I speculate that it's mainly, if there's any political dirty laundry, it might be with the current administration, not with any new administration from a different party, who may love to reveal this report. Hey, what you trying to hide here? And, you know, maybe the government should consider, let's kind of be in front of an issue rather than trying to lead from behind and follow the lead of somebody else. But again, to be a leader, you have to be strong. To be a follower, that's what the weak prefer, to follow. They don't go in front of an issue. They respond only when they have to try to placate. Remember, we ain't riot yet. They raise the price of gas. When they raise the price of electricity, will the minister say we ain't riot yet as well? Property tax coming too. You don't like it? Be more involved. If you're not involved, at some point, should you really consider having a right to complain if you don't want to involve yourself? The opportunity is there to fix it. You want to have a good day? Have to make it yourselves. Don't depend on other people to do it for you. We have to fix the country ourselves. Our government starts with us. So have a good day and a great weekend, as my co-host always says, and we will see you next week. Stay safe. Goodbye.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever-Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Have a content capital Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Now I know we have no snow, but Christmas is still here. Ho ho, the Christmas shows each week for all to see. Movie classics wait for you and a local content for free. Have a content capital Christmas, and in case you didn't hear, oh by golly, have a content capital Christmas this year.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh, available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
We'll exceed the 1.5 degree target. So while each year we must draw down our fossil fuel-based energy production, just as I speak, we have 500 gigawatts of new coal capacities that are being planned. And you have an absurdity as we speak, a true absurdity to choose coal. And so we need to make a complete U-turn on this subject. First, the G7 countries must set the example. I commend my colleague Sunyo, who is here with us and who presided this club, who is very courageous on this subject. But the G7 must set the example and commit to putting an end to coal at home before others. So before 2030, France will live up to its commitment to completely close all its plants by 2027 under my own mandate. I can't promise what will happen after me, but that's what I can promise for now. Then the richest countries must also help the developing countries also to phase out coal. Since Glasgow, the G7 has committed close to $50 billion in just transition energy partnerships. The JETP with Indonesia, Vietnam, South Africa, these are good methods. They must be pursued and disseminated to help the coal phase out. But this also means we must be consistent. We must therefore stop subsidizing new coal power plants. The G20 committed to this in Rome in 2021, but we must change the rules when it comes to private financing. As I speak, the private sector has no disincentive to finance a coal plant as opposed to a renewable. That's absurd, and therefore our private markets, our investment systems are massively dysfunctional, and it's really shocking for everyone. Therefore, we must overhaul the system. In the next few years, there must be one rate of interest, if you like, for green and one rate of interest for brown. And if there is one priority for the funders to ensure consistency, it would be to differentiate that rate of interest, which is a major spread because it doesn't integrate the climate risk. And as the way we look at investment today, we're in no way considering properly how we are funding assets which will have depreciated in a few years' time, and which are completely inconsistent with our global strategy. We're going to launch this with the World Bank and our partnerships as part of the Coal Transition Accelerator Initiative, which we're launching tomorrow. A third remark, we must commit to placing trade policy for the benefit of the environmental transition. This is another aberration that I want to put on the table here, because we invest in greening our industries at a global, regional level, but at the same time we continue to liberalize pollutant goods around the planet as if nothing was happening. That's very discouraging, and it's a lose-lose option. I want to say clearly, we do need major efforts in Europe, for example, to decarbonize industry and agriculture. If we continue to have the same trade agreements that we had in the 1980s, 1990s, sometimes agreements that were negotiated over that period that allow us to allow countries to go back to using coal, and then what's the point? Then our producers won't follow us. They'll be right, because so what we must have is a system that allows us to engage everyone on the same strategy. I think we must integrate in the WTO rules our climate rules. We need to bring them into the system, and therefore we need to completely overhaul in that system and integrate a climate clause into the WTO to align our trade regimes with the Paris Accords. And there are a few technical but essential points in that respect. We must be able to subsidize green industry. It could be legitimate, but if it consists with climate benefits, then the WTO needs to look into this. We need to place a tariff on coal like the EU. That's not the trade discrimination, but it needs to be done consistently with the goal of zero carbon by 2050. It should not be an instrument to block trade, but it needs to be verified. We also need to liberalize trade of environmental assets instead of pollutant assets to allow the energy and environmental transition to take place much more quickly. Fourthly, no one should have to choose between combating poverty and the struggle for the climate. This mini-revolution, which we launched a few months ago back in Paris, is the Paris Pact for people on the planet. We shouldn't have to choose between climate and combating poverty. Everyone should be able to choose their own path. More public money is needed. We need to mobilize more private money. In 6 months from now, there'll be a 6-month review that will be published during this COP. Macky Sall, the special envoy for the pact, will come with the secretariat, but already we've managed to mobilize much more money together by mobilizing the IMF and World Bank. I thank them. I invite all those who have not yet done so to redistribute their special drawing rights from the IMF. We've already managed to mobilize $110 billion that will allow us to launch in 11 countries today special programs, and those programs will allow us to prevent climate incidents and to combat poverty. We need to generalize this, and it's that commitment of a greater mobilization that we've launched with the Prime Minister Modi. All this more broadly must lead us towards a transformation of the very international financial architecture that was thought of at a time when many of the countries, many of the countries in this room didn't even exist at the time. So we need to rekindle hope to make it truly inclusive, and this profound transformation of our governance is a priority. Now, one thing I want to stress: we must lose sight of the need for adaptation of agricultural models, particularly in Africa, is a key subject. The Great Green Wall is making progress. I'm very pleased about that, and we shouldn't lose sight of that object, where we've mobilized more than 30 million euros together with King Charles. And we also announced an investment of 150 million euros in the next cycle of the International Fund for Agricultural Development. I want to urge here all countries present to participate in December in the replenishment of that fund, which will play a key role in reconciling the agricultural goal and the climate goal. And that is a crucial struggle, because we cannot ask the African countries to choose between the two, between agricultural production or climate. We need both with sustainable models, and the Ukrainian war has shown us that this model is unsustainable, because many countries need fertilizer, and so we must help them so they can produce more at home, but at a much more decarbonized level without coal. And all this is a key element, and that's the agenda that we'll be launching with Kazakhstan tomorrow. It's called One Planet, on the issue of water, to be held in September. I welcome the progress made during this COP. President President, when it comes to loss and damage. France will be financing 100 million euros based on governance elements, pending decisions on this subject. But I want to stress a number of points here, because the debate has really stepped up in Sharm el-Sheikh on loss and damage. Thanks very much to my friend Mia Motley, who did outstanding work, but we need to be careful on this issue on a number of points. First of all, let's not confuse the situation of low-income countries and poor countries. We need this fund, but first it must go to the poorest countries above all. We need above all profound reform of our insurance and reinsurance system, given in the face of climate risk, and this for the middle-income countries that need it. That fund must allow us to carry out that reform, to have a buffer, a guarantee, but we must have mechanisms between which we can distinguish depending on the category of country. I'll say that straight away. We need similar a simple form of governance. We also need a country-by-country approach. For example, we'll be establishing a first country partnership on adaptation and loss and damage with Bangladesh. France will invest 1 billion euros, so much more than we're putting into the fund now, because that is a specific country approach. We'll invest 1 billion. The IMF will add close to 20 billion dollars thanks to special drawing rights, and this is a key element of this laboratory we want to make on loss and damage. But what we need is an approach, a country-specific approach. Beyond that, we need for that true international taxation, and with Barbados, Kenya, and we are officially launching during this COP an international task force which will have to provide its findings to the G20 in Rio to place international taxation during COP30. That is a necessity that if we want to achieve real results, because we need to raise more money so as to finance our struggle against inequality and for climate. Finally, climate and biodiversity must be addressed together. Therefore, we must stress the fact that we must continue our struggle for nature. Forests, the oceans are part of our COP because they are carbon wells and a lever for extraordinary solutions in the transition. That is why I will take this opportunity to continue to establish, first of all, we need to accelerate when it comes to a real exchange on carbon. We want to invest much more private money to countries who preserve their forests and ecosystems. We raised this in Libreville at the start of the year. We'll conclude with Papua New Guinea, the Congo, the first national forest package. The idea being that we provide public and private loans to countries who save their forests, because we don't have that now. We put a lot of money into carrying out reforestation, but the poor developing countries, their forests are being destroyed to finance much more profitable economic activities. Therefore, there's an urgency to put money into those country-specific approaches and to have a shared methodology, and we'll be investing 500 million euros in the next 4 years in protecting forests following that methodology. And then the oceans are also a priority. It will be our honor to host the UN Conference on the Oceans in 2025. Our ambition there is to develop a real compact for the oceans with very in-depth international rules to preserve in our EEZs, but also in the high seas, to protect biodiversity, to better regulate fisheries and to combat illegal fishing and reduce pollution at sea. So those are some of the key elements that I wanted to bring to you in this debate, which are both solutions, commitments on the part of France, and also concerns where we need to step up the common agenda. Thank you very much, President, for your attention. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.